Good morning, all. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us this morning. Region 4 EPA, which represents the 9 or 8 Southeast states in partnership with the National Smart Sectors Program, is pleased to offer an overview and demonstration of helpful and relevant EPA resource locator wizard tools in the recently released Sustainable Materials Management, SMM, prioritization lifecycle-based tools, I should say, and its applications. EPA Smart Sector Program is a partnership program that provides a platform to collaborate with regulated sectors and develop sensible approaches that better protect the environment and public health. The webinar will start with opening remarks where you hear about the Smart Sectors Program from Region 4's Chief of Staff and from EPA Smart Sectors National Program Director. After the opening remarks, you'll hear from 2 panels of agency presenters for an overview and use of several EPA online tools. There will also be an opportunity to submit Q&As or questions and answers. Please submit questions through the Q&A chat window located on the Microsoft Live bar at the bottom of your application window. Ending will be Cesar Zapata. He's the acting director for Region 4's Land Restoration Chemical Division for closing remarks. A few reminders as we start. Just so you know, this is a live event broadcast, which means that all participants will be in a listen-only mode. If you have questions during the presentations, please ask the questions and enter into the Q&A chat window, as I had mentioned, located as a feature on the bar at the bottom of the Microsoft Live window. There'll be an opportunity at the end of each of the panel presentations to respond to questions through both of the 2 sessions. The webinar will also be recorded and is anticipated to be available online in 2 to 3 weeks within or on the Region 4 page located within the EPA Smart Sectors website. That's the national site. Again, I really appreciate you all taking time to be with us today. And with that, I'll be turning this over to Blake Ashby. Blake is the Chief of Staff for the Environmental Protection Agency, Region 4. Blake has a long and distinguished career in both public service and the private sector. Prior to his appointment here in the agency, he was appointed by former Georgia Governor Nathan Deal to serve as Executive Director of the Governor's Office for Workforce Development and had formerly served as its General Counsel. In addition to his experience at the state level, Blake has served in a number of senior advisory roles to members of Congress, the U.S. Department of Energy, as well as with a number of Fortune 500 companies. So with that, I will turn it over to Blake to give opening remarks, and then Blake will turn it over to Nina Shaw. Go ahead, Blake.
Thanks, Jay. I hope everybody can hear me today, and thank you all for attending and for your participation. I know you all have busy schedules, and we really appreciate it. I think it's going to be time well served with a lot of valuable and informative information on these smart sector tools, and have some value added for our stakeholders involved, and can come away with new tools in your toolbox. As background on the EPA Smart Sectors Program, it was launched in 2017 and is a partnership program that provides a platform to engage with industry and regulated sectors to develop sensible approaches that better protect the environment and public health within 13 sectors of the economy. Region 4 launched its Regional Smart Sectors Program and hosted a Smart Sectors Roundtable in December 2019 with resident plastics product manufacturers within the chemicals manufacturing sector to engage in a meaningful dialogue about agency priorities and to discuss environmental improvements across the industry in the Southeast. Today's offering is a follow-up to that event for both the chemical manufacturing and forestry, wood, and paper product sectors to provide an overview and demonstration of a suite of tools that assist in locating, navigating, and accessing EPA resources and an overview of the Sustainable Materials Management Prioritization Tool. The lifecycle-based Sustainable Materials Management Prioritization Tool served as a starting place to help identify potential opportunities for environmental improvement in the production and consumption of goods and services. These tools are designed to help highlight potentially significant environmental issues and hotspots. This knowledge can be helpful when prioritizing actions, focusing human and financial resource to achieve greater overall environmental benefit, and in considering key industries for collaboration. Next, I want to introduce Nina Shaw from our EPA's National Smart Sectors Office. A little bit of background on Nina. She's the Senior Advisor for EPA's newly launched Smart Sectors Program and has nearly 25 years of experience in environmental law and policy in both the public and private sectors. She has degrees from Duke University School of Law and the University of Michigan School of Natural Resources and Environment. After her first stint at EPA, she worked as a corporate attorney, where she represented corporate clients from many different sectors, including utilities, home builders, big box retailers, and chemical manufacturers on a variety of different environmental law issues. At EPA, Nina has worked on regulatory and voluntary programs in the Office of Water, Air, Region 3, Enforcement and Compliance Assurance, Office of the Administrator, and as acting director of the Office of Strategic Environmental Management and the Office of Policy, in addition to her current role in the Office of Policy. So with that, welcome, Nina. I appreciate it. I will let you take it away. Thanks.
Thanks, Blake and Jay. It's such a pleasure to be here today. I'm really excited to share some tools and resources with you. But before we do that, I want to say, Blake, that was an awesome introduction to Smart Sectors, and thank you for the very kind introduction of me. One of the things that's really important as we move forward and think about what we're trying to accomplish with Smart Sectors is we've got 3 goals. Blake, I thought, gave a great overview, but the 3 goals really help sort of define the work that we're trying to do at the national level and also that we see Jay and Blake doing at a regional level. So we're really focused on meaningful collaboration with regulated sectors, including the ones that are on this call today, sensible policies to improve environmental outcomes. How can we do better at what we do? We're going into it's our 50th year. We're going into our 51st year as an agency. And how do we rethink those issues that we have to face that are increasingly complex and challenging, and how can we do better? And the last thing we're focused on is better EPA practices. How can we do better in serving not only the regulated community, but public users who are looking for tools and information, which is why this session today is so important. So by the end of last year, we launched in all of our 10 regions and expanded our program, which really is fantastic. I think the work that Jay and Region 4 are doing and Blake really add to the increase in our communication. And at the end of the day, that is crucial. So, with that, I'd just like to say I'm excited to talk to you all today, and I'm going to hand it back over to Jay to introduce our first panel.
Thank you all. My name is Jay Bassett. I'll be moderating this first session. During the session, you'll hear from several EPA presenters on an overview and demonstration of several helpful, what we call resource and locator tools. As a reminder, please submit your questions into the Q&A chat feature located on the Microsoft Live bar located at the bottom of the application window. As you gather your questions, I'll be reading through them. And at the end of the session, after the presenters give an overview of the 4 tools, what I'll be doing is we'll be answering those questions after the last presenter. So with that, I'm turning over to the first presenter, which will be John Harmon from EPA's Office of Mission Support. He's going to introduce the Reg Finder tool, a regulation and permit lookup tool. So with that, I'm handing off to John from EPA's Office of Mission Support. Thanks.
Thanks, Jay. Again, everybody, hello. My name is John Harmon. I'm with EPA's Office of Mission Support. And my colleague and I, Justin Madison, are going to provide a demonstration of one of the tools that folks have been giving you a heads up about. The tool is called Federal Regulation Finder, or Reg Finder for short. And its purpose is to help people discover potentially applicable regulations. And it's one can search Reg Finder by chemical or substance, by keyword, or by NAICS or industry sector. So it's it's a tool that hopefully will help people navigate the EPA's website and discover regulations. From the search results page, the users can click on applicable CFRs, recently finalized rules, proposed rules, substance lists applicable to the regulation that are cataloged in our substance registry, SRS. The user can also link to the website for the EPA program that manages that regulation. So it's just it's a discovery tool. We're going to show you a beta version of RegFinder today, and while this beta version is available to users, there's a link I think in the agenda. We're asking users, this meeting being the very first, to test RegFinder and let us know your thoughts, what's clear, what needs improvement. We hope to have RegFinder 1.0 available towards the end of the year. It'll have a very clear way, working with Nina and her group. They've provided nice guidance here on how to improve the ability to give us feedback on RegFinder. And so with that, I want to hand the reins to Justin Madison. He'll walk you through RegFinder, and after, as Jay said, there'll be questions at the end if you have any. Take it away, Justin.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the introduction. As John said, I'm Justin Madison with the Office of Information Management. And we're going to be demonstrating a beta version of Federal Regulation Finder, or RegFinder for short. This is a very exciting tool that I'm very excited to show you this morning. So as you can see, if everybody can see my screen, hopefully, this beta version of RegFinder is located on the enterprise.gov/workbench URL. There's a few other apps that it shares this page with, but RegFinder is this one right here. Oh, and John, feel free to jump in at any time to clarify or kind of dig into the details a little bit more. So this is RegFinder. As you can see, it's very straightforward, simple user experience. The first selection that you need to make is select search type. So there's a drop-down menu right here where you can select substance name or CAS number. You could select keyword, or you can select your NAICS industrial code. So this is just a way for us to, whatever information you have at your fingertips, you can plug into the system. So you can really start from where you're at and find whatever regulation you're searching for on a given day. Right, so to demonstrate this, let's start with substance name or CAS number. And then really straightforward, you enter the substance. So you follow the prompt down below here, and this is a search bar where you can enter in whatever substance name or CAS number you would like. So for example, you could do formaldehyde, and you could type that in there. Or if you know the CAS number for formaldehyde, you can do that as well. So in this case, we know the CAS number for formaldehyde, or you could just type in the word formaldehyde and click search. And there we go, this pops up. So this is the RegFinder tool. The first thing we really want to look at is how many results we pulled. So we're pulling 58 results here on a few different pages. So we really want to refine this to search for the regulation that we want to find, right? So in this case, if you want to search water, you have that option right here. It's called the search within results, and you can type in water, press enter, and there you can see we have only one result. So this really narrowed the field to just one. And this is 40 CFR Part 141, National Primary Drinking Water Regulations. So when you find the regulation that you want to learn more about, find the resources, guidance, everything that you're searching for, you click this accordion and it drops down. And there's a lot of different information at your fingertips here. So first is details. So this is actually a link to the actual text of the regulation. So if you click this link, boom, it'll pop you right over to the text so you could read it for yourself. Legal authority is the laws that the regulation is based or founded upon. So these are the US codes that this regulation implements, for example. So you can click here to learn more about the Safe Drinking Water Act, or you could view the actual text of the USC. If we keep scrolling down, you can see recently finalized rules right here and proposed rules right here. This is a huge value add for RegFinder. This is a really good value add because the CFR is updated irregularly, but there are finalized rules that come out before it is updated that your business or industry might be subject to, but it just hasn't made it into the CFR yet. So this is where you can find finalized rules that were recently finalized, and you could click this link and look at those rules. Proposed rules, just like it sounds, is proposed rules, EPA proposed rules that have not yet been finalized, but are on the horizon of the regulatory landscape that you might want to keep your eyes on, just in case they become finalized rules. And these are links to all those. Another big value add for RegFinder is this associated EPA programs. So in here, you can link to the various program offices of the EPA that deal with this or pertain to this particular regulation. So here you can, for example, link to this EPA office, and right there at your fingertips, it links to the resources and even a contact us. So you could really engage with that program office that deals with that certain regulation. So you could contact them, you could look at their various resources, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm gonna exit out of that. And there are, in this case, 2 EPA programs that are associated with this particular regulation. Substance list. These are a list of substances that pertain to this particular regulation. So you can look at the other chemicals that this regulation deals with. And these are all active links that you could search and explore. So that's kind of scrolling down through there. Also, you have a lot of the same features up here. So you can go to recently finalized rules right here. And this is nice because it provides a summary of that recently finalized rule. So you don't have to click the link, although you could to learn more about it. But it just shows a summary of that recently finalized rule. Same goes with proposed rules. Really nice summary of those different proposed rules. And then if we keep going, this is the same as before. These are the program offices that you can link to get resources, to contact them, to learn more, get further guidance. Because we searched via CAS number or chemical, we have 2 additional tabs right here, structure and synonyms. And this is pulling directly from the EPA's Substance Registry Service in real time. So what this does is, because we search for formaldehyde, it's going to show the structure of formaldehyde. And it's also going to show all the various synonyms for formaldehyde as well. And then very last thing, substance list, like I covered in this tab over here, is the same. These are a comprehensive list of the various different chemicals and substances that are pertain to this particular regulation. Okay, so that was one feature of the tool. In this beta version, you click this X arrow right here to return to the main page if you want to start a new search. But just to show you another facet or another side of which you can search for these different regulations and find the proposed rules, find the recently finalized rules that you're looking for, the guidance, the resources. You could do the same thing if you did not know what particular chemical your business or industry uses. You could use the NAICS code, for example, if you do the NAICS code of your business or industry. Or, for example, you could use keyword. So with this, if we were trying to find a similar rule or regulation, we could type in drinking water and search that. All right. All right, first thing again that we want to look at is how many results we're pulling here. And if we don't see what we're looking for, we can always go over here to search within results. And this is a great tool to narrow your search. So say we're only interested in the national primary. All right, so we got to, there's a few different results, and we got to that one that we were looking for, but we approached it from a different angle. We didn't have formaldehyde, but we did have a few keywords that we wanted to search to find a particular regulation that we need to know more about. So the look and feel is the same. You can expand that down and look at all the various information and resources. You could also scroll across the top and find those recently finalized rules, proposed rules, associated EPA programs, and substance lists. So this is RegFinder at the core. This is our beta version. We hope to be launching version 1.0 here shortly. In which case it will have its own URL. We'll be providing that link and updating Smart Sector if anybody is interested in that final URL where Regulation Finder will be housed. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, we are the Data Management Service Division in the Office of Information Management. To get a hold of us, we can share this afterwards, but this would be the website that you can reach out to us directly, and we will be responding to your questions. So just a quick demo of this. You go to this website, you click Ask a Question. You could type in your information. Make sure for topic, you select Information Systems and Data Catalogs. And then you will find the subtopic of RegFinder in there. And then you could ask us a question and we will respond as soon as possible. And it's actually a human behind there who will be responding directly to your questions. Yes, of course, questions, answers, we'll answer those at the end of this presentation. But also in the future, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to get your feedback, tell you more about the tool. And also, we want your customer feedback so we could incorporate that into the tool itself, make it better, make it more useful for you in the future. So that is Federal Regulation Finder, and thank you for taking time today to take a look at it. Thanks. And with that, I will be passing it off to Nina Shaw and continuing the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John and Justin. As a recovering environmental lawyer, I think the world of FedRegFinder, as you guys already know. And what neither one of them shared was sort of how much work and effort went into making that information really easily accessible. And I think it's incredible. It's like it's an amazing resource, not only for those of us internally, but we hope for those of you guys externally as well. So hats off to them for their really years of effort and for what I think is going to be just an outstanding resource for folks. All right, well, I'm here to basically talk about 3 other resources that we have developed over the years, and I love the data division's tagline, Find Answers Faster, because that's essentially what we've been thinking about for quite a while in trying to provide the tools and resources that EPA has, which are just numerous. And so here I'm going to talk about the Materials Management Wizard and the Green Infrastructure Wizard, as well as ListIn, all of which are prepared on the same architecture, which is why we're talking about them today. And they solve this question of how do we basically find answers faster, information faster. So if you search on Google for something like EPA Materials Management, SMM, and Sustainable Food Management, you can yield over 100,000 results. If you do it on EPA's website, you can get over 20,000 results, which is really just too many. But if you take the materials management wizard and do the same search, you get about 43. Hopefully one of those 43 will answer your question, but at least it gets you to a much more manageable list. And GWIZ, the Green Infrastructure Wizard, as well as ListIn, which helps you find disinfectants that are effective against COVID-19. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The slides, for the most part, are going to be focused on the Materials Management Wizard. And then at the end, we'll look at GWIZ and ListIn. So what do we index? What are we really finding on the Materials Management Wizard and GWIZ? It's really EPA owned and produced tools that already exist on our public web pages that are relevant to these topics. So that's what we're finding, because all of our information and resources are all over. They're on our headquarters websites as well as our regional websites. So this is really trying to make it much more user-friendly for those who are looking for those pieces of information. We can go to the next slide. So when we look at the Materials Management Wizard, this is the user interface that you get. And there are two options. There's Quick Links and Explore. Quick links are basically 4 topics: learn, engage, act, and discover. And you click on one, then you will get another choice, and it brings up a curated list of resources that we think are most likely applicable to the question that you have. Explore gives you a lot more options, similar to what we just discussed in FedReg Finder. So you can go to a series of big topics and then click down onto more than one subtopic, and you can pull up those list of resources. And then I think we're going to see, here we are. So quick links, this is a bigger view of the learn, engage, act, discover buttons. And under learn, for example, you can say, I have general questions about SMM. And if that is what you want, you can click on that and you will get a list of resources. So let's go to the next slide. You select one, next slide. All right, and Explore, you just get a lot more options. So who are you? What materials interest you? Which resources meet your needs? What benefits do you want to achieve? What are your objectives? Or just a regular old keyword search? So under each of those, you'll get to choose more than one option. So if I'm a consumer, then it'll give you other subtopics under there. Or if you're interested in electronics or food, it will give you materials. It will give you further suggestions from there. And this is what the output looks like. So you essentially get the total count of resources that respond to your search. And then under the materials management resources, you get a link, an active link to the resource itself. And then under more information, you get just a little bit more some of the metadata that it's associated with that. Under resource type, you can hover over that and you'll find out if it's a website, a fact sheet, or a report. And then you can click on the green leaf and you will note that you can highlight it, and then you can go to the PDF button at the top, and the PDF button will essentially allow you to create a PDF of the results for sharing with others. So that's what the output looks like for both. And then you can share that PDF, and it's super easy. Next one. And as Justin was mentioning, feedback is hugely important. You know, none of these are one and done. We always want to get the feedback and help make it better, either if something isn't on there or if you're not finding what you are looking for. So there's a feedback button that you can give information on look and feel or problems or new resources or features that you would like to see. And then we've got the website down there. So the take-home messages are really pretty basic. These provide easy access to EPA tools and resources. Quick Links offers a quick 2-click interface, and Explore gives you a little bit of a more classic searchable library function tool. Both provide users with links and more information. And ListIn, so we're going to look at ListIn and green infrastructure really quickly. I'm going to I'm going to demo those, and then you'll see sort of how they work, because they're all, they're all really pretty similar. All right, I think I'm now going to share my screen, and we'll go into, do you all see that now? Nope. Do you all see my screen? There we go. All right, so this is the Green Infrastructure Wizard, and you'll see, just like the Materials Management Wizard, you have the Quick Links option and the Explore option and the feedback button in the upper right-hand corner. So with Quick Links, we have, again, we have the same number. They're a little bit different: learn, research, design, and assess. And if I want to do some research, I click that, and I can click on one of three options. I need to find ways to pay for green infrastructure. So we click on that button, and we get 66 total resources. We get our PDF button, and then we can look down and see that these are case studies analyzing the economic benefits of low impact development and green infrastructure programs. Under more information, you can see the URL, the purpose of this resource, the intended user, the objectives, benefits, the cost. I don't think there's a cost for any of our resources, but nonetheless it's up there, and the resource type. And the resource type, you can also hover here and you can see that it's data and case studies, and you can click on the green button if you want to like that. And then you can create the PDF, which should come up, although it's slow. All right, so I'm going to pass on the PDF, but nonetheless, the PDF would be the ones that you selected, and then you could share that document with anybody else. So we can go back up. You can click out of research and go into design or assess. Alternatively, we can go to the explore function. And in Explore, similar to the Materials Management Wizard, you have a couple of options. Who are you? What would you like to do? Or keyword search. So we'll go into who you are. So maybe I'm an engineer or a developer, and I can click on that, but you can also click on more than one. So I'm an engineer, but I'm also a regulatory official, and you can show the results. So we get 366, which is quite a bit. So what you might want to do is go back to the search page. Sorry, I went back too far. We'll go back to who you are and go back to, we'll look at benefits now. So with benefits, I can look at cost savings, ecosystem health, and gray infrastructure footprint. And I can show those results. And it's the same output, same information, and you can create a PDF of those results. You can also just clear those results at this point and do something else if you've returned too many, for example. All right, and with that, we're going to look at the list in tools. So as many of you all know, we are in the midst of a pandemic, and when this happened, EPA was quickly thrust into really the forefront of disinfectants that are effective against COVID-19. And we had information that was available in a spreadsheet format on our webpage, but our colleagues in the Office of Pesticide Programs were looking for a mobile app that would be available to those who are looking for disinfectants that were effective against COVID-19 at a point of purchase. So thinking about the Green Infrastructure Wizard and the Materials Management Wizard, we thought that this IT structure would work quite easily. So again, so you don't have both options. We really only have one in this one. but you'll see you have a similar library function. So you can search by EPA registration number, by active ingredient, and here we have a drop-down list. The use site, whether it's residential, healthcare, or institutional. The contact time, if that's important to you, how long something has to remain on the surface to actually kill the virus. You can browse all of the resources, which at this point there are almost 500, or you can do a keyword search. So for keyword search, I'm going to type in alcohol, and we're going to see what comes up. And so this is a little bit of a different output than we had with the Materials Management Wizard and the Green Infrastructure Wizard, but it starts with the EPA registration number, the active ingredient. All of these will contain some form of alcohol, isopropyl being this one, or ethyl alcohol being in this one. The product name, so what is it sold under, the company that makes it, and other information, including contact time, formulation type. So again, you can use the PDF or CSV function to export these this sort of information box into a document for easy use. You can clear the results over here, and again, you could go back and search for citric acid, for example, as your active ingredient, and you would get a different list of 15. So we hope that the feedback has actually been really positive on the list and tool, as well as the Green Infrastructure Wizard and Materials Management Wizard. And I look forward to taking any questions that you all have at the end. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jay for Q&A.
Hey y'all, Jay Bassett back again. We do have a few questions that I thought we pushed out, a lot of them around the Reg Finder tool, and some of them I know, John, you've already answered in the chat box, but are in the Q&A chat box, but I thought I'd bring them back up. And one of the questions was around the time criteria in terms of recent and finalized rules, which I translate really as how often does it update, how update is it in terms of the data underneath the tool, and when does it get updated? So John or Justin, if you could maybe take that on and answer, I'd much appreciate it.
Sure. So, hi everybody. This is John again. So the answer is that the CFR is published annually, and it usually comes out at the end of the year. And so the recently finalized rules, the algorithm for searching the Office of Federal Register Notice website is based on the publication of the last CFR. So it'll when you conduct a search, it will pull in the Federal Register notices published since the publication of the last CFR.
Thanks. Excellent. There was another question, and I'm going to retranslate this a little bit. It was around, I think what it really gets down to is, the underlying data within the Reg Finder, and whether or not there's some accessibility, if you want to call that, in terms of the use of the tool in being integrated within other tools, whether it would be other agency tools or maybe other external tools that say, that might be offered externally. And so I didn't know if there's an answer to that or not, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
So, yeah, so the answer is that this is beta, and so we're always looking to improve the system, and integrating with other systems would make sense. One of the common queries we've had is what about guidance documents? And so I know that's one of the areas where there's a strong interest in ways of improving guidance document access. So We're talking with Nina and her group about ways to improve the system and maybe integrate with others. Just an FYI, you know, we've built this Reg Finder as a reusable tool, so that it's possible to it will be possible for people to put this once it's ready, put this new tool into their website if they want to. It's basically going to be built as widgetable, if that's a word.
Yeah, I think, or wizard, as I know Nina likes to talk about it on the wizards. Nina, just one question for you on, you know, the materials management wizard and the green infrastructure wizard. You know, there's a lot of conversations right now going, you know, as you look at, you know, the kind of the corporate social responsibility programs that are looking at ways to really generate impact, right, within communities. And so I didn't know, you know, as you look at using the tool to pull out different EPA resources that may be of interest in their work and looking at how they work with communities on, you know, green infrastructure and other things like that, if there's ability within the tool for them to be able to kind of look at it from that angle or not. So it's just a question. I know I saw that I get those kind of questions fairly typically from a lot of the consumer product good companies and other ones that are really looking at things like green infrastructure as part of outdoor recreational economy development, that type of thing.
Sure, I think that's a great question, Jay, and I think you raise a really good point about what corporations are thinking about and looking at as they sort of really focus on sustainability within their organizations and thinking about their footprint and what they can do sort of in the larger context. So I would say that the resources that we have up there are the ones obviously that we have made available. The economic piece, we definitely worked with the Office of Community Revitalization to ensure that their documents were up there. But I think over time, we are going to see more of those because I think there's going to be a larger interest in the economic impact as well, not only, you know, the cost, but also the benefit side. So to the extent that they're already in there, it's because they exist, and it's not like this information is changing from our side, but I do think interest is growing on the outside. So that's what I would say at this point. I think it would be interesting to think larger about ESG particular resources that, you know, might be an opportunity for us in the future to be a little bit clearer about some of the issues that corporations are specifically asking about. Right. Thanks for that question.
Yep, no problem. Well, I think that's it with the questions for this session. So with that, I want to give my thanks and much appreciation to John, Justin, and Nina, and for the, I thought, really good presentation and information on EPA tools. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to.
Hey, Jay, I just wanted to, before handing it off to Wes and Jared and folks, I just wanted to say we'll be developing, we've developed some fact sheets. We just need to get them ready for distribution. So if people are interested in that, we can work with Nina's group and Jay and group to make those available. And again, just to emphasize, I'm not sure how clear I was. We're developing Reg Finder to be a widget so that not only so you can plug and play in your own website. So if that interests folks, and again, reach out to us. My email address is harman, HARMAN.John, JOHN @epa.gov. If people want to reach out to us. Thank you.
Excellent, John. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to transition to session 2. Barbara Alfano will be moderating the next session. She's the chief of the PCB and sustainability section at Region 4 EPA, and she manages the sustainable materials management, pollution prevention, smart growth, disaster recovery, and PCB programs in Region 4. Being one that formerly had just the sustainable materials management program, that's a lot. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Barbara.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate that introduction, and I'm really enjoying these presentations today. So thanks so much. I have the pleasure of introducing the next two speakers and colleagues of mine. Jared Bridge is a physical scientist in EPA's Office of Resource Conservation and Recovery, where he works on projects related to life cycle analytics, systems thinking, and international sustainable materials management topics. Jared has co-led the efforts to design and develop the sustainable materials management prioritization tools in collaboration with partners in EPA's Office of Research Development, such as Dr. Wesley Ingwerson, who was the primary ORD collaborator and who is also a speaker today. So Wes has served as an environmental engineer in ORD since 2010, developing methods, models, and tools for life cycle assessment and materials management. For the past 5 years, he has led the development of the economy-wide life cycle assessment model that he will be talking about, the United States Environmentally Extended Input-Output Model. Wes has helped establish the global network of LCA databases and has served as a technical expert on LCA for the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Green Building Council. But first we start with Jared. Take it away, Jared.
Great, thanks, Barbara. And I'm just going to start sharing my screen now. So hopefully that's booting up. And so I'm just going to go through a few slides first to give some background about the SMM prioritization tools, how we got around to developing them at EPA, and some background about them, and then I'll go into a demonstration as well. So a little bit of background first. After about 20 or so years of working under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, also known as RCRA, EPA really started to recognize that the waste program would need to start evolving to meet the challenges and opportunities that were coming down the pike for sustainability in the future. And so it was clear that we needed to shift away from thinking about waste to a more holistic systems level approach around materials management. And in 2009, EPA released the report Sustainable Materials Management, The Road Ahead, which you can see on screen here. And that report laid out the concept of SMM, or Sustainable Materials Management, for the first time, and described it as a systemic approach to using and reusing materials more productively and sustainably over their entire life cycles. And the Road Ahead really provided strong recommendations to government for fulfilling its role in achieving SMM. And it also created an analytical framework to help identify where environmental impacts might be occurring within materials life cycles in the United States. And the idea was to help identify sectors in the U.S. economy for potential SMM-related collaborations and maybe demonstration projects to help reduce those environmental impacts. And so in this way, that analysis in that report aimed to help decision makers find new potential starting places to focus and prioritize their SMM efforts. And so, as you all know, today I'll be talking about the Sustainable Materials Management Prioritization tools, which you can kind of see as the spiritual successors to the analysis from the Road Ahead report. And so instead of needing to do a big report with consultants every few years and spending a bunch of money on that, EPA decided to make dynamic and updatable web-based interfaces to portray the same information in a web-based format. And so the idea was to provide faster, easier, less costly, and improved ways to develop lifecycle environmental information that can then be used by decision makers in their efforts to set environmental priorities or engage in strategic system level dialogues. And so a little bit background about the tools themselves. As I mentioned, they're web-based user interfaces, and they reach out and access and display information from a model that EPA has created called the United States Environmentally Extended Input-Output Model. And this was developed primarily by my colleague Wes Ingwerson, who will be speaking next, in our Office of Research and Development. And it's a fully transparent and reproducible and free-to-use life cycle assessment model that looks at roughly 386 goods and service categories in the United States and assesses them across a suite of over 20 indicators, which I'll get into more of in the demonstration. And the idea is to provide big picture information about potential environmental hotspots or opportunities for improvement in the United States, and to show those benefits across a range of indicators. So a trend we were seeing back in the early 2000s was people would get very excited about a one-dimensional environmental exercise, like, oh, we're really going to do this initiative without much evidence behind it, or without much attention paid to maybe some trade-offs that might occur or potential unintended consequences. So we really wanted to show a suite or dashboard of indicators to give a bigger picture than what was available at the time. And so who are the intended users? This really could be anyone looking for environmental improvement opportunities, or especially who might be in the early stages of developing sustainability strategies or strategic planning exercises along those lines. And so could be anyone in these sectors listed on screen here. And so this slide just quickly goes through the relationship between the prioritization tools and the US EEIO model. They technically are two separate entities, but we often talk about them at the same time, and the lines can get a little blurred. So this is just to demonstrate that a little bit. So what happens is a user would come to EPA's website where we host the tools, and we have two tools right now, the national and organizational tools, again, which I'll describe in a few minutes. So a user would choose to explore one of those, and then that tool would reach out in the background to the US EEIO model, and that model would then spit back out about 10 million plus data points to the user interface that the user selected, and then that user interface will make charts and graphs that you'll see in a few minutes and reflect those back to the user. So that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes, and you can kind of see the model as the engine under the hood of the tools. And sorry, that's an old slide, but I'm just going to jump over to the web page now. So hopefully you can all see my screen still. And so this is where the prioritization tools are housed on EPA's website. So it's under the SMM web area. And here a user could have everything they could need to start using the tools and get background about them. So we have the links to the tools themselves, as well as a recorded video tutorial from back in April, some frequently asked questions, more information about the SMM program, a user manual for the tools, and some information about the model in the background. And so if I clicked on the link to the tools, that would open up this page, which we refer to as a landing page, and it has the links to both SMM prioritization tools, the national and organizational. And the national is really designed for folks who have a national viewpoint. And so this could be anyone looking at the US as a whole. So this could be a national trade association or an NGO or government entity such as ourselves at EPA. While the organizational tool is a bit stripped down and streamlined for folks at maybe small and medium-sized enterprises who don't have a lot of time on their hands or money for life cycle assessment consultants and things like that. And it's really just quick snapshots and very streamlined to get folks the sustainability information they're interested in as quick as possible. So I'm going to start with the national tool, which I have pulled up here. And so here, the first thing that pops up whenever we enter the national tool is an in-tool tutorial, which just gives some quick tips about what's going to be on screen and how to read and interpret it. But I'm going to skip that for now since we're doing that live. And so this screen here is the main results page for the national tool. And we call this the heat map. And the idea is to give, at a quick glance, some high-level information about potentially significant hotspots in the US. And so down the left-hand side here are those 386 goods and service categories that I mentioned before that are included in the model. And we only show 10 by default, but the whole list is available in this search box. And we can show up to 50 at a time. but the rest of the list is available if one you're looking for isn't, you're not seeing it there. So you can just type some keywords there and find what you're looking for. And so those goods and services are assessed according to the indicators that we see along the top here, and particularly in these first three categories. So the impact potential category, we have some standard life cycle assessment indicators like acidification potential, ecotoxicity, eutrophication, greenhouse gas emissions, human health respiratory issues, human health toxicity issues, ozone depletion, and smog formation. And I should note, pretty much anything in the tool has hover text over it. So if it's an acronym and you need the full name, or if you want a description of whatever you're seeing, you can just kind of hover over it and a box should pop up with some information there. In the resource use category, we have energy use, land use, minerals and metals use, and water use. And then we have a waste generation category, where we have commercial construction and demolition debris, commercial municipal solid waste, and commercial RCRA hazardous waste. And those all have the commercial modifier because everything in this tool relates to commercial activities or economic sectors. We don't yet have a household component to this, so it doesn't include household waste generation at this time. So those three categories dictate the goods and services that we see here and the order that they're in. And then we also have a fourth category, economic and social, which has jobs added or jobs supported and value added to the economy indicators, just to give a bit of another dimension to look at these sectors through. And so again, the idea here is to get a quick idea of which sectors might have some hotspots or opportunities for environmental improvement, and where those opportunities might lie within those sectors. And I should note that by default in this tool, we're looking at these potential impacts in a cradle to gate format. So for instance, I'm going to dive into an example sector in a second, but for instance, with packaged meat, we could say we're seeing the impacts not just of the packaged meat sector, but also the impacts of its upstream supply chain as well. They're kind of all allocated to the goods and services that are consumed at the household level. And so from there, I can dive a bit more into these, into a given sector. So I'm going to go packaged meat as an example, but this whole module that we'll go through looks the same for all the sectors, with just the data being different. So you could feel free to explore any sector you'd like, and it'll all follow the same pattern. And so in this module, we have 4 tabs here, with the first one being the environmental profile tab that we're seeing here. And we're basically looking at the same impact information that we saw in the heat map, but in this case, these impacts are made relative to one another for this sector. So it's a quick way to see which impacts might be most significant and might have the most relevance for someone who's looking at sustainability in this sector. And so in this case, it looks like land use may be a major area to look into for sustainability strategies in this sector. And so we can keep that in mind as we go forward. So if we go to the next tab, supply chain operations. Again, this is looking at those same indicators that we saw in the heat map, but it's showing the share of those impacts that might be occurring either in the operations of this sector or occurring in its upstream supply chain. And so the supply chain portion are these gray bars, and the black portion are the operations. And so for this sector, in this case, it looks like a majority of these potential impacts may be coming from activities happening upstream from the actual packaged meat facility. And so that kind of gives the user a sense of what this sector may have direct control over versus what they may be able to influence by working with their sector, or with their supply chain, sorry. And so again, we were interested from that first chart in land use. So we can see that over here. It looks like close to, if not all of that impact may be allocated to the supply chain of the packaged meat industry. And so this is where these tools stop for the operations portion of these impacts. Because there are 386 categories, that would be a lot of effort to go through what those operations are for every single sector. And obviously a high level tool like this just can't get to that level of detail at this time. But the next few tabs break down more of the supply chain portion, so we can get more information there. And so that's what I'll show now. So this third tab is the impactful purchases tab. And the way this tab is set up is with two pie charts. And this first one is showing the most significant or the potentially most impactful purchases that this sector makes according to all of those indicators that we saw before lumped together. So it's kind of overall impact, what purchases the packaged meat sector are making that have embodied impacts. And so in this case, looking at all of the impacts lumped together, it looks like cattle ranches and feedlots and purchases from that sector maybe bring the most embodied impacts to the packaged meat industry. And then the second pie chart is the same idea, looking at that first line of the supply chain for this sector, just the purchases they're making, but we can split it out by an individual indicator. So for instance, the one we were interested from a few tabs ago was land use. So we can choose that one again. And it looks like maybe about 3/4 of that might be coming from purchases from cattle ranches and feedlots. And so again, this is just another way to look at if someone wants to make a sustainability strategy in this sector, they can see, okay, what industries might I get the most benefit from working alongside or working with to hopefully reduce some of these impacts. And so again, impactful purchases, that's just the purchases this sector is making, that kind of top line of the supply chain. But we can also go deeper into the supply chain in this last tab, the supply chain hotspots tab, which is set up in the exact same way with the two pie charts. But instead of being the purchases that the packaged meat sector directly makes, you can see it as the suppliers to the suppliers. And it's really getting to the origin of the potential impacts in the supply chain. And so again, it's set up the same way with the two pie charts. This top one is looking at all of those impacts lumped together. And again, we're seeing maybe cattle ranches and feedlots is a good place to look for potential improvement opportunities deeper in the supply chain. And then again, if we want to look at an individual indicator down here, we could look at a different one just for the sake of switching it up. I think acidification potential was the next highest. We're seeing a similar pattern here. It might be, in this industry's case, a good idea to work together with the ranches and feedlots in their supply chain. And so I'll also note that for every chart in the tools, there's this download chart button where you can get the data as a CSV file. Currently, I should actually note that that function hasn't been operating properly lately, but we'll be getting that fixed soon. But just as a note that that's there for users in the future. And so that concludes this module here that we went through. And these 4 tabs also make up the meat and potatoes of the organizational tool as well. So that other tool that we could click on the landing page. The tabs look very similar to this. The main difference is that the organizational tool does not start at the heat map like this tool does. It starts at just a search box or a list of the goods and services where you can just click or search in the list to find the good or service you're interested in, and then start from there. And it goes through these tabs. And then there's also an option to print everything at the end. So it kind of brings everything together in one place for the user, so they don't necessarily have to go back in and do the same analysis again. I think that's the main things I wanted to talk about. We do have some built-in comparison analyses here at the bottom of the heat map for the national tool. just some very basic comparisons you could do, like looking at two goods and services side by side. So if we wanted to look at what are some different, I don't know, plastic products, plastic bags, and I'm just making this up as I go, and plastic pipes. And basically there's it will show the environmental profiles side by side. And so if whichever good or service has the highest impact in a given indicator, so if we're looking at the acidification indicator here, whichever one has the highest impact will be set at 100%, and then the other good or services included in the analysis will kind of be indexed according to that. So it just gives a quick view of how two goods or services might look side by side. And then we can do a similar thing with the supply chain operations breakdown that we were looking at in the last module. So just a way to see that side by side for two different goods and services. I think just for the sake of time and keeping everything running smoothly, I'll stop there, and I can turn it over to Wes now. And happy to answer any questions later on.
Thanks, Jared. This is Wes Ingwerson from EPA's Office of Research and Development. I'm going to kind of pick up where Jared left off, and I want to start here really briefly on the model homepage. You can search this acronym and find it on Google. It'll take you here now, or on the EPA's website. So this gives you a little bit more information about how this model is being used, because it's being used in these SMM tools, but it's also being used directly by counties and directly by corporations like Amazon and General Motors. So what we've been wanting to do recently is kind of take some of this information you can get out of the model and some of those graphical rendering of those complex results that you just saw in the SMM tool, and kind of take these out and make them into pieces that you could take and put into your own web applications, or maybe that in particular that could inform local communities about sort of opportunities that exist with the industries that are within their region. So what we've done is actually gone and partnered with Georgia Department of Economic Development, their Centers for Innovation, who I think kind of early on when we started presenting on this model saw the joint value of economic and environmental value in this kind of life cycle information that can be provided by the tool. So we've partnered with them, and then this summer we actually partnered as well with the Smart Community Core program at Georgia Tech, and we decided we worked with some experts on taking some of these visual pieces and making them into what we call widgets, which are these reusable pieces of web pages that can be cut and paste more or less into other applications. So Jared was showing you, for instance, the heat map. So we sort of have the code for this. So if you wanted to customize your sector list and look at it with your indicators, then you could kind of take this and put it into your own website to do that. We've also done some new type of illustration of the data you can get out of the model that weren't yet in the SMM tool. So if you want to look at just economically, if you're the rubber tire manufacturing industry, what types of NAICS codes, what other sectors are all of your inputs coming from, and what is your market for this, or maybe communities want to understand the relationships between these suppliers and the purchasers of industries. So this is one little tool to show you that. We also have a way for you to look at, kind of cut and paste if you want to look at one particular industry sector and maybe compare it to a couple others and see how it looks with its environmental impact profile, then you can kind of take and cut and paste that. So we also have ways that you can further configure it, but I want to jump into quickly just some illustrations of what we're trying to do with this in Georgia. So in Georgia, our idea was to work with a couple communities, and those communities are actually going to be in Southeast Georgia and also in the West Georgia, LaGrange area. And we wanted to sort of pair the power of the model and take information that could be relevant to local communities with that. So we're pairing what we can get out of the model with just data on industries and demographics in given regions. Georgia Economic Development, Lauren Hines, has done some awesome work in being able to pair this data with county maps. So you can click on a county. You can get information we're pulling from the census or Bureau of Labor Statistics on kind of annual payroll or number of establishments and employee counts, and that's going to change the ranking. You'll see which industries are largest in this particular area, and then the connection down to the widgets is you can see like an instance of that sort of input-output 3-column one that I showed earlier. That's just customized to that particular county. So it's going to show for all of those big industries in that county or selection of counties above, what are their suppliers and who are their buyers as well. Now, this is based on sort of the average of these industries at a national level, sort of these upstream and downstream relationships, but we're also working on developing the economic model for states, for individual states or Georgia, so you could really customize this so it fit that kind of purchasing profile and the market for individual states or areas and within states. And then based on kind of these sectors that are selected here, you can get that heat map type of view that we saw in the SMM tool, but it's customized again for that one particular area. So you can kind of see how these different industries rank in terms of environmental impact. So this is a beginning for us. I mean, there are more. Something that we're doing that I think is going to be really exciting is having an open web challenge. This is kind of a hackathon type event where we're going to invite people to, particularly with web development and design experience, to help us further along these widgets and make them easier to use and maybe more interesting. So again, our partner, Georgia Department of Economic Development, and us at EPA will actually partner with this kind of volunteer group called Code for America. And we're going to have this event hopefully in early 2021. So if you know of any web developers within your organizations or others, and this could range in experience from just the very basic level, those that are students in school that have some education in development, web development and design, all the way up to those that are really sort of senior in their career and experts in this field, then they would be invited to participate in the challenges, and we will be awarding cash prizes to teams that through this competition. So if you're interested, this is at model.georgia.org, and you can actually register to participate. You can also come down here and read more about what we've done so far, and there's a contact link if you just want to contact us and get more information about it. For developers, you can view the project areas, so some of the particular enhancements that we'd like to make during this event when we have it. And that's it. I mentioned earlier that we had worked before with Georgia Tech. So they actually, it's the Smart Cities and Smart Community Core program. We will be giving a webinar on what we did with some more specifics in October. So if you look at this Smarter Together website, we'll have more information on our event in October where we'll present that. So with that, I'll stop there. Pass it back to Barbara.
All right, thanks, Wes. really interesting. I love that you're working with the students and having that upcoming challenge. That sounds really interesting. We are going to go to the Q&A now, and looking at the Q&A box. Thanks to those that have put your questions in there. Really appreciate it. We had a comment or kind of a question. Is there a tool or is there a way to have a comparison between the plastic and paper bags? Because I think we've all dealt with that question. Well, which is really better when you think about all the resources that go into them and their life cycle. So who wants to tackle that? Jared or Wes, the plastic or paper question?
Hi, Barbara. This is Jared. I could take that.
Thanks.
Maybe not necessarily giving a definitive answer one way or the other, but when I saw that question pop up, I went back into the tool and made that comparison happen. And it actually looks like it's quite split. There are some indicator categories where plastic bags have more potential impact and some where paper has more. So maybe not a definitive answer, but that kind of comparison and other comparisons like it are quite simple to do in the SMM prioritization tools in that module I was just showing.
All right, thanks a lot, Jared. Let's see, and I think there's another question here, Jared, for you. Is there any license requirement or fee for using the US EEIO widgets? Or is that's for, I think, sorry, that's probably for Wes. Yeah. Yep.
Sure, I'll take it. No, none at all. None at all. It's developed in an open source way. And all of that code for those developers they can find their links on the pages that I showed you to get there, and so there's absolutely no restrictions on being able to use that and get that information, and as I mentioned, you can almost cut and paste those type of web components and put them in any website.
Okay, now, but if somebody uses it and takes the tools and embeds them in their website, does it collect information from the users of the tools?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't collect any type of user information. It's just one way, sort of read only. It's getting information or results from the model, sort of based on the sectors that might be selected, or the indicators that are selected, and there's no storage of any of that information, any of those queries that are sent from any user device.
Okay, I'm sure that's going to make people feel better about using them. Okay, and Jared, are the data used in these tools publicly available? I think you kind of answered that.
Yes, they are. They're all publicly available government data. So some come from the EPA, like the Toxic Release Inventory and the National Emissions Inventory, and some from other government agencies like USDA, USGS, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Census Bureau, some from the Department of Energy, et cetera. So it's all mostly federal government publicly available data.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. And Jay, I think you had a question or two. Do you want to ask that now?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Hey, Wes, just as a way of, for the audience, when we talk about widgets, right, and how kind of what a widget is and how that's connected to the national prioritization tools, could you just give a little bit of maybe a definition, right, of when you say widget, what does that really mean in its use and application? And then I had a second question, which I'll wait till after this one, on your application.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can kind of think of it, a widget as something like a little frame or box maybe that presents some information from another source on your website. You can think of it as sort of maybe the weather forecast type widget, which is copying and paste. It's not on the weather.com website, but it's pulling the data from there, and it's displaying, what that forecast is. So, using the USEIO model is complicated. You have to have expertise in that. And what we realized is that if we really want people to be able to make use of it in these kind of dynamic ways, like on websites, then we sort of need to give them these pre-built pieces that they can more or less. I mean, the web developers again, but not the web developers that have model expertise, but just people that know how to, embed code, from other sites, in their website, that they can take it and put it in there and kind of customize its look and feel to that website.
Okay, thanks. And then the second one related to that is around data, right? That, is there opportunities for those that use these widgets in terms of, as you dial down to specific sectors or specific locations of incorporating other data into the model?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of what I demonstrated is incorporating it along with some local publicly available data. But we would definitely be interested, and we'll be talking with folks in the communities I referred to about allowing them to, add some of their data that they know about their industries and their communities or their particular demographics that may not be in the public space, and being able to kind of put that in there and maybe see how that's going to change the actual model results. So we're very interested in any types of industry groups or community groups that are interested in testing and working on that with us.
Right, and you can run different scenarios, and it really is a could be really an interesting way to look at these problems. The last question, I want to go back, Jared, to you on the last one, which was the comparison question. And so what I want, might be helpful. I know that was this very specific one, but if you could just give, in terms of the tool and how the tool is intended to be used, as you do that kind of comparative analysis, what is it the output of the tool tells you, for folks that are looking at it to rely on it for making decisions, right? So I think we kind of got at that. I just want to dig a little bit deeper, say, if you're running these types of analysis, how do you interpret comparable analysis in a way that, is valid, right? Because, as you said, it's it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 answer sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jay. And I will say that the information in the tools is not meant to be the end all be all by any means. It's really meant to be a starting place for folks. So even though we may be able to do something somewhat specific like that plastic versus paper comparison, this is really a high level starting place for people to really just, they can dive deeper outside the confines of the tools to get more information, but maybe this can point them in a certain direction to dive into. And so I think it's important that this tool not necessarily be just the one-stop shop for all that decision making. Like, could just be a starting place and a kind of a jumping off point in that way, because as you said, there's a lot of nuance in the data here, and it may not be cut and dry one way or another. And so it's just provides a very good place to start from. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I know it was never intended, I think, to be definitive. So
right.
Yeah. All right, Barbara, that was it for me.
All right, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Jared and Wes. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Cesar Zapata, the Acting Division Director of the Land, Chemicals, and Redevelopment Division. Cesar is going to provide the closing remarks, and Cesar has a lot of programs under his management. He manages the Solid and Hazardous Waste Program, Sustainable Brownfields, Redevelopment, Sustainability, Pollution Prevention, Underground Storage Tanks, and Chemical Safety Programs. Cesar started his career in 1993 with Ohio's EPA before he came to US EPA in 2000. Before his current role, Cesar was serving as the Deputy Director of the Water Division, where he worked in planning, organizing, and directing the implementation of EPA's water programs. Additionally, Cesar supports and represents the EPA on international environmental assistance projects as part of the U.S. government environmental obligations under the free trade agreements. Cesar, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the speakers for the excellent presentations and demonstrations. I have learned a lot, and I believe the information that was presented will help our communities and our businesses as we implement what we have learned. We heard about significant ways to estimate environmental impacts and economic impacts. The sustainable materials management prioritization tools are just one of the many focuses of EPA's Sustainable Materials Management Program. Overall, the program promotes systemic approaches to using and reusing resources in a productive and sustainable manner throughout their life cycles. I want to share other important activities that are taking place under this program that may be of interest to you. The first is the America Recycles Pledge. EPA invites organizations to sign the American Recycles Pledge to work towards a more resilient materials management economy. Currently, we have about 250 organizations from state and local governments to large companies that have signed up the pledge. By electronically signing the pledge, an organization indicates its interest to participate in ongoing dialogues and to improve America's recycling system. Pledge signers receive periodic updates from EPA on America Recycles efforts, such as current national recycling strategy and the upcoming America Recycles Summit and Innovation Fair. The National Recycling Strategy is the result of Congress action in its fiscal year 2020 budget appropriations, and it identifies objectives and actions needed to create a stronger and more resilient U.S. recycling system. The strategy metrics are currently out for public comment until Friday, October the 2nd. So I encourage everyone to visit the website shown here under the strategy review. EPA is proposing metrics that can be divided into 4 categories: assessing recycling performance, reducing contamination, increasing processing efficiency, and strengthening recycled materials markets. The draft national recycling goals aim to create standardized definitions for the recycling industry to keep pace with today's diversity and changing waste systems. I mentioned the American Recycles Innovation Fair and Summit. The fair will be held on November 16th and the summit on the following day. Both events are being held to recognize America's Recycles Day. The America Recycles 2020 Virtual Summit will be free and open to the public. The summit will include working meetings with recycling stakeholders, panel breakout sessions, and most importantly, the announcement of our national recycling strategy. In addition to the national summit, here in Region 4, we are planning offering a virtual roundtable discussion on the implementation of the strategy. This will build on the national summit activities. I will thank you very much for your participation today, and I hope that this presentation was very helpful for all of you and for implementation in your community and in your companies. The webinar has ended, and if you have any questions or comments, please contact Jay Bassett at the contact information included in this slide. So thank you very much again, and have a great day.